Okay. All right. So we did Tess last week. Anybody? We're up to Tess.
I thought we were Yud. Okay, no, it's not, right, God.
Jody, did we really get up to Yud, or are we really up to Tess? When you say you feel like, do you mean you actually remember Tess, or does that mean you're hoping?
No, I remember Tess.
You remember Tess?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you give us a synopsis of Tess? You shouldn't have to see it. If you remember it, this should be just repeatable.
I don't think we did.
I don't think we did Tess either. But I can check the recording.
I thought we
Jody,
did.
if you read ahead though, you're going to be in trouble. I'm just warning you now.
Trying to take over this year.
Let's just review if we did test.
That's fine.
Why don't we?
You're gonna do it anyway.
Okay.
There's words in there that I remember singing, that's all.
Okay. Okay.
I like that.
All right. I think we'll start with Tess.
Yeah.
And Jody, if I mess up, just correct me on the way, okay?
No, I think for me, it was the last paragraph of Tess that I think I remember us talking about.
Okay. Then we'll start with Tess. All right. So, what we talked about until now in Ches was that it is important for a person to guide their lives based on the connection to Hashem that they have. And in order to do so, a person needs to know what Hashem wants, and a person also has to know the greatness of Hashem and the lowliness of man relative to Hashem. And in doing so, a person can come to a level where they are not only in awe of Hashem, but also come to a higher level of having an unconditional love for Hashem. Because of recognizing how great Hashem is and how insignificant we are, we should be filled with a sense of awe first, and then as we develop that, that should turn into a sense of love where we appreciate everything that Hashem gives us, because we understand how little we're worth and how we don't actually do anything for Hashem, and how everything that He does is 100% and purely for us. That should engender a love which is unconditional. And then, through that mindset and doing mitzvos with that mindset, a person can attain a closeness to Hashem which is unrivaled, and that closeness to Hashem is the greatest level that a person can attain in this world. And by doing so, they can elevate themselves, they can purify themselves to an extent, and ultimately, after our neshamas leave our bodies, the neshamas will then be able to fully develop, and the bodies will be able to be fully purified, and that way when they are brought back together again, as we learned, they will be able to be elevated to the highest possible levels. That's what we talked about until now. Good? Are you all comfortable with this? Okay. All right, now we'll move on to tests. For some people, I guess this will be review. For others, this will be new. And it says as follows. All right. V'amnam, however, emtzai echad nasan lanu hakal yizbarach shmai. There is one medium that Hashem gave us. Shemadregasai l'mayla mikol shar ha'emtzayim. That its level is higher than all of the other medium, hamakarvim adam elav, that will bring a person closer to Hashem. Who? And this is Talmud Torah. The learning of Torah is on a higher level than all of the other mitzvahs when it comes to its ability to bring us closer to Hashem. And this is done in two ways. One is when it comes to the way we toil and learn the Torah itself. And then the hashniya, the second is the bechinas haskala, is to understand the words of the Torah. Okay, so there's two elements here in learning. There's one is the actual learning, and the second is the understanding. So they are separate, which certainly implies that Ramchal is of the understanding that a person learning even without understanding has a tremendous value. Now this is a debatable point, and I believe it is argued upon by others, but at least Ramchal seems to say over here that learning, even without comprehending, is a tremendous mitzvah. Yes?
The word comprehending, comprehension, does that have various levels?
Absolutely.
So is there some possibility that when you're reading you have some level of comprehension? Does it fall under the category of different kinds of persons?
I don't think so, because I would think that he would say, if that was the case, that there are levels. The first one is a basic understanding, and then the next level is the deeper understanding. He doesn't say that. He says the first level is learning and the second level is understanding, which sounds like they're independent.
The first level is reading.
Which would then be reading, right? If learning here is without comprehension, then we would call that reading, correct? Now, I will tell you that there are those who spend their day, this is their, as far as they're concerned, this is the ultimate, they spend their day just reading through Torah. Just reading for hours. Because as far as their understanding, this is what we're talking about over here. There is a value to simply reading the Torah. The words of Torah themselves are so powerful that simply reading them is this tremendously great thing. So that's what he's saying. So level one is reading, working at it, toiling, and the second is the understanding, the depth. So let's understand this. Kihine. Ratza b'chazda yizbarach. Hashem wanted. V'chiber lanu chibur devar. And he connected words. He created this entity of words. K'masher gazer chachmasai. As his wisdom decreed. U'masaram lanu. And gave it to us. And this is what we call the Torah. V'hainu. And this is klal sefer ha-Torah. This includes the Sefer Torah, the Torah scroll, all the words of the Chumash. V'achro Sifrei HaNeviim, and afterwards the Neviim, which includes the Ksuvim, the prophets and the writings. Shebesigulas advar mahem, because the treasure of this, of all these words, yiyeh shemi sheyageh bohem, it will be that someone who toils and works in these, b'kedusha uv'tahara, in purity and holiness, al kavana anachayna, having the proper intentions, shehi asiyas chavtzei yizbarach shemai, which is the intention of fulfilling the will of Hashem. Yisatzim by al yadam, he will be able to incorporate through them into himself maila eliyayna ushlemus gadol ad ma'od, a high level and an extremely great level of perfection. All of that can be attained through the Torah. So, we're talking about something which eclipses the other mitzvahs. We're talking about something that is able to accomplish more than other mitzvahs are able to accomplish. And mind you, this is all on the first level. This is all without the understanding, without the depth, without the comprehension. This is just the words of Torah itself. It's got to be work. There has to be toil, there has to be effort involved. And for some people that might just be the reading itself. For others, primarily it's going to be in the understanding. But there has to be the work involved, that work of understanding, reading, continuously learning the Torah. That is this tremendously tremendously potent medium which allows us to connect to Hashem in the highest way. Now, just before we get into the next element, that of understanding, it is important to note over here that he says that the intention, the proper intention that a person should have when learning is fulfilling the will of Hashem. Now, that itself is there are other ways of understanding what it means to learn Torah Lishma. Torah Lishma means you're learning Torah for its own sake. Now, what does that mean? How do we interpret that? What does learning Torah for its own sake mean practically? So, Ramchal here is saying it means you're learning it for the sake of fulfilling the will of Hashem. Hashem gave us the Torah for this purpose, to learn it, and we're doing this in order to fulfill His will. And that itself, that is the level, that's the height of kavana, of intention when we're learning. There are others, the Rambam, Nefesh HaChaim, they say that the level of Lishma refers to learning Torah for the purpose of understanding it. That's what they say. They say that learning Torah for its own sake means for fully comprehending it, for fully understanding it, for getting the depth of its knowledge and its secrets and all of that. That's what learning Torah Lishma for its own sake refers to. So, if that's the case, there would seem to be two different ideas over here. The Rambam and Nefesh HaChaim seem to be saying it's about understanding, that's the high level, and Ramchal seems to be saying it's about doing the will of Hashem. That's the high level. So which is the intended goal? So Rav Dessler addresses this, and he says that the goal, the way Ramchal is saying it, is a higher level than the way the Rambam and Nefesh HaChaim are saying it. He says that what Ramchal is telling us here about learning Torah for the purpose of fulfilling the will of Hashem, that's an even higher level than the other lishmas that are mentioned, namely learning it for the sake of understanding it. So, putting this all together, what we have is that the ideal way for a person to learn Torah is to have the proper mindset, to be doing this in a sanctuary of holiness and purity, not to have other things going on, not to have other objects in your mind, shall we say, that are going to distract you. Certainly not to have anything sinful in your head that will contaminate what you're doing. Not to use your mouth for things you're not allowed to use, because that can also contaminate the Torah. So there has to be an atmosphere of purity, an atmosphere of holiness. That's to get to this highest level. And then there has to be the kavanah, there has to be the intention. What's the goal? What's the motivator? Why am I learning this Torah? What's it all about? That, the first of the best levels, is to learn it for the sake of understanding it. And then the higher of the best levels, the best of the best, is to learn it for the sake of fulfilling the will of Hashem. And that's it. Yes?
Is there an issue of language involved here regarding the reading part? Obviously, if I read the Torah in Hebrew, I'm not going to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
If I read it in English, I would understand what I read.
Yes? So what's your question?
Is that relevant to this?
Is it relevant to our discussion? Yes, it is relevant to our discussion. So, the value of Torah in its fullest is definitely in the language that it's written. And the amount of value, shall we say, that's lost in translation is immense. There's a lot lost. Rabbi Dr. Akiva Tatz has a couple of sermons about this. If you listen to him on, you go to the website simpletoremember.com and you'll look over there. He has a couple of speeches about this. But there's a lot lost in not having the original words. There's tremendous depth in the letters, in the words, the connections, the connection of one word to another word, and all that's lost when you change languages.
I'm asking a different question.
Okay.
I'm saying that
Well, I hope I answered a different question at least.
I think you did extremely well.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
He doesn't know what
Sure.
the question was, and you answered.
Neither do I, apparently. Go ahead.
I'm saying because I'm not fluent in Hebrew,
Yes.
I can read the Hebrew words,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But I don't know what they mean. So I'm asking, does that qualify for the reading part? Whereas if I was reading it in English, I would be reading the words and I'd be going, I have some idea of what I just read because I know it. So
Okay,
So
so
the reading.
okay, so I don't think that reading in English is not a fulfillment of reading, and I definitely think that reading in Hebrew without understanding is a fulfillment. So I think either way you're going to fulfill, but there's no reason for there ever to be one without the other. You should always be reading the Hebrew and then reading the English. That's why we have all these books today that are in English. So could you please read for us the next word? No, but I mean that's something that ArtScroll and Feldheim and other publishers have accomplished in over the last 20, 30 years, is that they're taking all of the Hebrew texts and translating them accurately as possible, and making them accessible. So now you have people who are struggling to read Hebrew but can read the English and understand what's going on. So, but there should never be one without the other. It should always be both. Say again?
The Rambam, the Halacha was not written in Hebrew. The original was written in Arabic.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay. So yeah, there's definitely value, but there's no reason to ever have one without the other. Should certainly be both. Okay. So now we can talk about the limiting what he has said over here, because the wording of Ramchal here seems to indicate, and this is, I noticed here on the bottom, he does say that there are those who discuss this, and they seem to find this idea in other works of Ramchal as well, that the value of learning Torah by simply reading the words without necessarily understanding them much is limited to the written Torah. Just a moment. That's other kids trying to control my kid, okay? They're not doing a very good job. So it seems from the Ramchal over here that the value of simply reading without really understanding is limited to Tanakh, to the words of the Torah itself, the Chumash, the prophets, the writings, what we call Tanakh. But beyond that, all of the oral tradition, like what we're reading right now, or the Gemara, or Mishnah, or anything like that, all of that would not be included in this. So he does bring over here, the Shulchan Aruch Harav actually does paskin this way. He believes, and he says that the fulfillment of the mitzvah of learning Torah, when it comes to the written Torah, is accomplished by simply reading the words. But anything which is Torah Shebechsav, the oral Torah, that needs to be understood. But others disagree. Magen Avram, he brings here Pri Megadim, and some others who, there's a lot of different opinions about this. But just to note that Ramchal does mention over here that this is included in the words of the Chamisha Chumash Torah and Nevi'im and Ksuvim. That's it. He stops there. So, according to that, there would be no value, according to him, or at least not in regards to the fulfilling the concept of learning Torah, to simply reading the words of other parts of Torah without understanding them. So just important to note that distinction. Okay. Are we good? Yes? Okay. All right, so let's move on. Okay, v'chein. And furthermore, someone who tries to understand the words of Torah, I'm sorry, and to know that which the commentaries have given us, Yikne, he will acquire, based on the effort, the work that he puts into that, Shleimus al Shleimus, he will acquire perfection upon perfection. Kol shekain im yagia el haskalas Yisrael v'razim, and certainly, if a person is able to reach a level where he understands the secrets and the hidden ideas within the Torah itself. Shekol inyan mehem sheyaskil, because anything about it that you are able to understand, yukba v'yisatzem benishmasai madrega min hamadregas, a person will be able to achieve, or will achieve through this, and attain a level of one of the levels hayoser ramais that are the most high, shebemaila, that is attainable in height, the hashlemus ha'amiti, and the truest level of perfection. So by understanding, we're able to accomplish so much more. So yes, there is tremendous value to simply reading the words of the written Torah, even if we don't understand them, and that will help us attain a level that other mitzvos can't even get us to. And nevertheless, there's a level above that. That level is the level of understanding. When we understand the Torah, we understand that which is being taught, that which we need to learn, the words that are being said, that is an even higher level. That's a level above levels. That's perfection on perfection. And then the highest level is getting to the point where we can see the secrets, where we can see the depth, where we can understand the hidden messages. Those ideas are the highest of the high, and that's where the most lofty levels are attained. So, when anyone gets there, please let me know. Okay. All right. Now, not going to get into this too much because it seems from all the commentaries on this that he really discusses this a lot more when we get to section 4. So it's going to be a while, presumably. But we will get into it more when we get there. So I'm not gonna try to expound on this at this point. Okay, so now, so with all of these things, it is not enough, meaning it's not only that a person will attain for himself a high level and a level of perfection, but the entire world, the reality of the world around him, in its general sense and its particulars, mis'ala u'mishtalim, will also be elevated and will also be perfected, and most notably so when it comes to Torah learning. The Torah that we learn is able to accomplish so much for the world around us that we don't even understand it. Now, this is a point of contention in Israel with the army. There's always the fights between the religious and the non-religious. Should they go to the army? Should they not go to the army? But this is what we believe. We understand that the Torah learning is so protective and is able to accomplish so much for the world around us that we're safer by having more people learning than we are by having more people in the military. That's how we understand it, because the military at the best is working in the realm of nature. The Torah, that goes way beyond nature. It's able to accomplish what no gun or marksman could accomplish. So this is our viewpoint. That, like he's saying over here, the entire world is elevated through our Torah learning, specifically, and more so than other mitzvahs. It's true of other mitzvahs as well, but more so even than other mitzvahs. And therefore, a person should not think that it's just for themselves, that they're only accomplishing for themselves. What they're accomplishing is helping the world. Which is why communities have kollels. That's where the whole idea of a kollel came from. It's to be able to have people who are learning in your community, even if they're not learning with anybody else. Even if they're not doing any kind of outreach and their door is locked shut and no one comes into their house. There is a tremendous value in just having people studying Torah. It's tremendously valuable. It accomplishes huge amounts for the community and for the whole world. So it's something that we should take to heart and do our best to try to be a part of. Okay. The rest is kind of pretty simple till the end. So let's try to finish up here. Okay, so the ulam, however, sibas kol matz, we're up to yud, by the way. We're done reviewing now. We're on to new material. The ulam, however, sibas kol matzvei ha'adam, the cause for all the person's different circumstances in life, cheshchasai ubehirasai, the darkness and the clarity, hinehi ha'aras panav yizrach shema elav, It is simply a manifestation of Hashem's light shining, or it's being obscured. As we learned back earlier in this chapter. We learned about this at the very beginning of the chapter, where we said that all goodness is a manifestation of connecting to Hashem, Hashem's light being present, and all evil and all physicality really is the obscuring of that light. It's kind of clouding. It's stopping the light from continuing, and that's physicality. That's bad. That's all the things that are not good in the world. Kihine. Kol masha Adon Baruch Hu meir panav. The more that Hashem shines His face, so to speak, mitzrabe hazoich la'ashlemus. There will be more purity, more perfection. B'mi shehigia lo'ha arasai. To whom this light reaches. Ukafi shir ha'ara. And based on the amount of this light, kachu shir ha'ashlemus v'hazoich ha'nimshach mimenu. Proportionate to that will be the level of purification and the level of perfection. The hafech zahalam, and the same is true on the opposite side. The more a person is blocked from the light of Hashem, the less purity and the less perfection, and on the contrary, the more of the opposite of that will exist. So, here comes the important part. However, Ha'adon Baruch Hu meir tamid l'mishi yizkar ve'elav. Hashem is always shining His light to